Hey there! I thought I would take some time to share with you some of my favorite art-related books, whether they're specifically for art teachers, something to encourage working artists, or just some beautiful children's books. I think you'll appreciate these, and I hope you check them out. All right, let's start with Find Your Artistic Voice by Lisa Congdon. You probably will notice a theme running through here. I have a lot of some of the same illustrators because they truly inspire me. But this is just such a great book about discovering who you are as an artist, figuring out what you want to say, deciding what mediums are your strength, how to overcome obstacles. It's really encouraging. She has a lot of interviews with working artists and just some beautiful, encouraging illustrations in here as well. But this is a great tool and resource to go back to over and over again, just to remind you of who you are as an artist and what you want to say. Keep yourself unique. She illustrated the next book I want to show you, Broad Strokes, and this is kind of in the same vein of discovering who you are as an artist, but this is by looking at artists of the past, particularly women who made art and made history. I just thought this was a fascinating book. I loved looking at their work. I loved hearing about the biographies about women that I had never heard of, female artists that I just did not know about, or had a very quick glance of in an art history class or something. This really dives in deep, and their stories are so compelling. It's really an entertaining book to read. I can't recommend it enough. Reading about Lee Krasner in particular led me to discovering another book, which I'll show you in a minute. I'll grab that one real quick. I honestly can't believe I picked up such a chunky book, but discovering more about Lee Krasner in this one led me to want to read even more in depth about the Ninth Street women. All of these working artists, how different they were, what their social life was like, hanging out together and inspiring one another, the men in their lives and how they put up with them or got inspired by them as well. It's a really big book, but again, another one that's like surprisingly easy to read because I guess you just get so enraptured and involved in their stories, and plus it's cool to see their actual work and some personal photography as well. So this is another recommendation. I think learning about artists of the past at least really inspired me to want to create art in the future. And when you want to create, there are some books that will help give you some ideas. This one, Brave Intuitive Painting, I discovered Flora Bowley when I was really following Kelly Ray Roberts on like a daily basis on social media. These two were friends and they went on a painting retreat together, and her style is just so interesting, and her method in particular that she talks about in this book, about just kind of doing free association and getting color down and then rotating your canvas and seeing what you see. She does a lot of like yoga practice and meditation and stuff while she's painting, but it just really encouraged me to loosen up and try new things, get messy. It's allowed. So this is a good book. Kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, Gregory has always really fascinated me. I just love his style, but he's a very tight sort of artist. Flora is really loose and painterly. He sketches every day, and so I think I have all of his books, but he documents his life, and he talks about what he's going through, and even to the point of just like drawing his breakfast every day. I love the way he draws, and he features some different artists in this book that also kind of use their sketchbook as a diary. But his style in particular it's just beautiful to see, and it's such a great reminder that there's nothing mundane in your life, even something that you see on a regular basis. Because you're taking the time to focus your attention on it, you are giving it importance. Your act of creation is documenting what you think is valuable and worthwhile in your life. And I mean, come on. These illustrations are just beautiful to look at, period. But Gregory really taught me to appreciate the everyday, and that art doesn't have to be precious. It can just be something you do regularly, and the practice itself is what will lead you to improve and possibly help you appreciate your life even more. Another book for artists, about artists, but that kind of segues into my children's book section is this one, Pocket Full of Colors, a book about Mary Blair. So this book is really inspiring. She was one of the first women illustrators and animators for Disney, so she's pretty incredible herself. And even though this book wasn't illustrated by her, it has some of the same colors and forms and things that would be similar to her style. So it's really interesting to get to know her life and all the things that she went through to get where she got. And it's empowering to share with little girls especially, that even if you're the first woman in an all-male environment, you can change things for the better. So it's a really beautiful book, very inspiring just to look at the pictures. But it also just piqued my interest to want to know more and read other biographies about her. This is one of the first books that I remember getting as a child, and this is special to me because it's a book about Tommy DePaulo, but it's also illustrated by him, so it's his signature style. So it tells the story of one of his early art experiences when he was in school, and how creative he was, and how he was always drawing and painting and documenting his life. And it just made a really powerful impact on me, because when he gets to school, his passion is sort of smushed. His fire is extinguished a little bit because he experiences the constraints that the world can put on a child, that he's not able to do the things he wants to do, and he is encouraged to limit himself or make his art look like everybody else's. So the art teacher, not only is she a style icon, come on, but she makes him feel special. And not only does, what's required of her, teaching like a step-by-step kind of drawing exercise, but she gives him some freedom and lets him be himself. So that always really impacted me and encouraged me to want to be an art teacher. And plus, I just love the signature style. The next book I wanted to show you is a beautiful story itself, The Last Stop on Market Street. But beyond just the story, the illustrations captured my heart and made me want to know more about Christian Robinson. So he uses a lot of simple shapes, interesting little details, and texture. A lot of his work is collage based, but the story itself is beautiful. It's about a little boy riding the bus with his grandma, and you find out at the very end that they're going to serve people in a soup kitchen. But just, these amazing details he took the time to do just really highlights the beauty and individuality. So this is a great book in itself, but it also just opened my eyes to this new artist that I currently follow and love everything he does. Another book that was one of my early memories, this is kind of a big version of it, Harold and the Purple Crayon, of course. So this is like, a really big version, several different books together, but I'm just kind of surprised at how much it stuck with me, that you can create the world you want to make. I mean, Harold drew what he wanted. He created the world around him. And it was just so powerful to me that artists have that kind of power and influence and control. So that was really interesting. This book is a classic. Love it, love it, love it. Kind of along the same vein, I discovered as I got older this book called The Dot. I'm sure you've heard of it. Peter H. Reynolds. Again, just goes back to how, like with Harold, a line can change everything. In this book, a dot can change everything. Starts off with the student being really discouraged and not wanting to make anything. A polar bear in a snowstorm because it's a blank white piece of paper. And what started off as an act of rebellion, just a dot, turned into a fascinating line of discovery. Vashti just inquired about what more could she do with just a dot. How could she make a dot different and more interesting? And it just grows into this work, a series of artworks. And I just thought that was so cool. And it just goes along with, you know, there's power in just getting started. I thought that was beautiful. Another book that's kind of along the same lines is called The Stick. And again, it's just about taking something simple, whether it's a line, a dot, or a stick, and using your imagination and pushing it into all these different possibilities. A baseball player, a knight, fishing pole. There's just so much possibility in art. And you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of supplies to create something beautiful. This book is just really interestingly illustrated and simple, but powerful. So you should definitely check this one out too. Drawn Together is a book that I actually discovered at a book fair, which is really cool. Everybody loves a book fair. But another book that just has some kind of simple beginnings. You know, they're not even using a lot of words to start with because language is their barrier. But it just reiterates the power of imagery to connect and the power of art to build bridges. It's so gorgeous. A little boy and his grandpa create their own world through illustration. And I just love it. It's beautiful to look at, and again, it just hits home that story, that narrative, that art can be so powerful in connecting us to other people, to the world around us. It's a beautiful book. You should get it. My last children's book is called Studio, A Place for Art to Start, and I actually got this after I had sort of done research and read some of the other books that I'm going to show you in a minute, that just changed my whole philosophy about teaching. But this book is really cool because it talks about all the different kinds of studios that artists can work in, what they look like, how they're different but all valid. It's colorful and poppy, and just makes me want to live in this world, work in this building where all these different studios exist. Photography studios, ceramic studios, animation, sculpture, screen printing. It's just gorgeous. And they're all animals, so, audio, visual. Yeah, so I think children can really see themselves in this world when the people are represented by animals. So not only is this just like my whole college experience in a book, but it really opens children's minds into thinking about all the possibilities, all the different things you can do with art. And that's really what I want to do as a teacher, is inspire students to consider possibilities that maybe they never thought were for them. So this is a great book if you teach elementary and you want to start doing tab or choice in your classroom. What got me here were the thicker books, the like education books. So this is a really great one, Differentiated Instruction in Art, Davis always makes wonderful books, but this one, like, I've devoured. I've dog-eared, I've highlighted. I actually even teach a course now that uses this book as a foundational tool to prepare other art teachers when they're getting their graduate degrees. But it's just amazing to think about all the different ways that teachers can influence children of all ages just by agreeing that their way is not the only way. It's so cool. This book really breaks it down into helpful practicals as far as designing lessons or creating accommodations for students that just think differently. So this is a great basis for a choice-based classroom, but I think really any teacher, any kind of teacher, any subject could benefit from considering different ways to differentiate in their classroom, because, you know, we don't want standard kids. I know we have to give standardized tests, but we want to encourage students to build on their strengths and to see their differences as strengths, that it doesn't make them less than just because they do things a little differently than others. Scaffolding, building upon prior knowledge, giving students a chance to group and work together. This is just so rich with resources. So this is an excellent book. I would highly recommend. And another one, again, if you're interested in choice-based education, this just changed my world. Just relinquishing power, letting students be in control of what they want to say. Like, you teach them the skills and the techniques, but you give them experiences that they don't know exist, and then you let them make art that's meaningful to them. So this is like a basic ground level sort of book that would be really helpful to anyone that's considering incorporating more choice into their teaching practice. And this is one that, again, I just go back to over and over again. Catherine Douglas, she's the OG. Definitely check it out. Do you see any familiar titles? Have you heard of any of these before? Are you gonna check them out? Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe.